So welcome, good evening. Tonight we are working on discovering in-text citations and references in Zotero. My name is Kristin Heifner. I'm a user experience librarian at the Evans Library. Today's session is focused on learning more about using Zotero, specifically when you're working on longer documents such as research papers, theses, dissertations. This is going to be for your bigger papers where you have a lot of references and resources that you're trying to add in. So the first thing we're going to go over are some of the resources that are available to you to make the writing process as well as using Zotero a little bit easier. But our main focus is going to be using the tools, the Zotero tools within Microsoft Word. So I'm going to start by doing a lot of screenshots so that you can see up close what those different tools look like and where you're going to go to find them and what they can do for you. So first we're going to set and change the style format. Next, we're going to look at inserting and editing in-text citations. Then we're going to create and edit your reference list. Once we've kind of gone over how all of those should work, I'll switch to a live demo so you can see how it works in practice. It's just when you do the live demo, all of the tools are so much smaller. I wanted to make sure everybody could see really where those things are located. Finally, I'll end with the questions. So first is for any graduate students that we have in here are some thesis and dissertation resources. We've worked at trying to make things as easy as possible for you by updating the template. So it has all the kind of built-in tools that you need. So you can find those updated templates on the Office of Graduate Programs site, as well as the Formatting Your Thesis and Dissertation Research Guide. The research guide also has a lot of tips and instructions on how to fix some of the common problems. The GradTrack research guide is good, especially if you're just starting in your process, because it has resources for doing literature reviews, how to do your research proposal, and so much more. So I'm going to actually put all of these links into the chat so that if anyone wants to copy them, they are available there and you're not trying to grab them off the slide. So beyond that, if you're doing papers for a specific class, if you're an undergrad, we have a lot of research guides for particular disciplines as well as certain classes as well. Okay, so as far as Zotero resources, we have a research guide with the library on citation managers. Talks about others. I gave the link specifically to Zotero since that's what we're talking about today. It includes links to workshops we've given in the past, as well as other tutorials. Some by Zotero, some things we've done with the library. If you are new to Zotero and need to start from the very beginning on how to set up Zotero and the basics of how to save and manage your references, we have a workshop that we have done previously with the YouTube video there. Those of you who attended last month's workshop, that was discover the benefits of Zotero workshop. That went a little bit more in depth in terms of managing your resources, how to cite. It also did some of the beginning basics of how to copy and like drag in citations and references to your document. We're going to go a little bit deeper with those word tools, which works a little bit better for bigger papers and ones where you have a lot more sources you're trying to do. I also included the link for help if you're having problems with your proxies when you're using the Zotero connector, just so that it's handy and available in case you run into those problems. So for tonight, I am using the Zotero 5.0 download software for Windows. It is available for Macs and Linux. When you go to the Zotero download site, it kind of recommends the options that are intended for the computer you're currently running. It tries to identify that. The one for Windows, when I download it, is going to include my plugins to work with Microsoft Word. I'm using Microsoft Word 365 in part because that's the version that is free to everyone at Florida Tech, whether you're a student, undergrad, graduate, or faculty. You can sign in with your school email and get that. It will work with other versions of Word. I just happen to be using that one because it's the most readily available right now. But you do need to use the desktop app, not the online version, so not the web browser version of Word. That doesn't include all of the tools. While we work with this, you have to have both programs open on your desktop. So you have to open Zotero and you have to have Word open. That's how they're able to communicate when we're going through the different steps. If for whatever reason you open Word and forgot to open Zotero, when you try to use any of the tools, you'll get a dialog box will pop up and prompt you to tell you you need to open Zotero. So when you've downloaded the Zotero for Windows or you're for Mac with the Word plugin, you're going to have a choice of a Zotero toolbar like you see on the screen. One of the options within Microsoft Word, you should see Zotero in addition to the tools you're used to seeing within that. When I click on that tab, it's going to pull up the different tools we're going to go over tonight. So the first is the add and edit citation. That's how you're going to insert your in-text citations. So most of it sounds pretty much what it is. The add and edit bibliography is going to be how you add and edit your reference list or your works cited, however you title that based on the style that you use. The document preferences is where you're going to go to set your citation style. What's nice about this is you can set it within this for whatever document you're working on. So if you need to use APA for one class, but MLA or IEEE for another class, you can set it for the document you're currently working on, and it will apply those style settings to your current document. So this is the basic tools. The first thing we need to do is set up our document preferences. So on this previous slide, we're going to go to where it says document preferences. This dialog box comes up. The first thing we do is scroll through those and choose our citation style. I picked APA 7th edition because it's one of the most common ones that we use. You can scroll through the whole list and pick a different one, whatever works best for your discipline. If you look down the side of the page, I left it language set to English because that's what I'm writing in. Within fields, those are kind of field codes that are built into Microsoft Word. It's kind of recommended that you leave those on because if you turn those off, if you make changes, you're going to have to manually go through and change each of your styles. So for example, you started your paper by inserting your citations in APA, then you found out, oh no, I was supposed to do it in MLA. If you have fields set, you can go in and change it and it will update all your styles. Or say you're halfway through your document and your particular citation style went to a new edition. So say you were using APA, they just recently went from one edition to another. This will, if you've got the fields turned on, will update those so that you're in compliance with the newer edition. The bookmarks are not really recommended. It's mostly if you're working with someone who isn't using Microsoft Word. However, the automatically update citation, which on my screen is checked, you may want to uncheck if you are working on a thesis or dissertation, a book, something really long, because with the automatically updating, every time you load your document, it's going to run through and check all of those codes. If you're doing just a research paper, it's fine. However, if you uncheck that, it doesn't mean you can't update them. It just means you're going to choose the time of when you're going to update those. And we'll go over how you do that a little bit later. Then there's manage styles. So if for whatever reason, what you need is not available here, you can go into manage styles and dig a little bit further down and get more specific. So when I click manage styles, I get kind of the more advanced view of these Zotero preferences. I can go in and get additional styles. So if, for example, whatever I'm looking for is not in there, you can go there. You have the option to include the URLs of all your paper articles that are in your references. Generally, Zotero only includes the full URL. If your document didn't include the page numbers, it will include like DOI numbers, things like that. But if you want all the URLs in there, you can go into this level and include that. There's also the style editor and style preview. The first thing we're going to go to is look at those get additional styles. So if for whatever reason what you need wasn't one of these built-in kind of default styles, you can open up this get additional styles and the Zotero style repository opens for you. Within that, you'll see it says it's got 9,995 styles. Some of them are odd and not very commonly used. The commonly used ones, like I said, are already in there. But if you're looking for something different, or you are publishing somewhere that has a very specific requirement, you may find it in here. So you can search within this style repository by the title of the style. You can go into the format. So maybe you want it listed by author and date, label, note. So it's got those different ways of how it's numeric, how it's going to sort your references. You could also go into various fields. Not everything is included, but a few general categories. And you can see by clicking on those fields what the common styles are, at least according to Zotero for those fields. But again, like I said, these are the more esoteric ones. You're going to find most of the ones that most people use are already included in the style manager. Now, if we went to the style editor, this kind of gives you the behind the scenes view. You can see how Zotero is actually using the code to build those citations. You can go in and edit things within this, but again, it's not recommended. Usually if something's not appearing right, it's not usually a problem with the code for that style. It's usually some kind of problem with a certain reference's metadata, which in the previous class, Chelsea did show you how to get into that and how you can edit and fix that. So be cautious before you go too deep into the style editor unless you kind of really know what you're doing, because it's very rarely necessary. But for those of you who are doing something very specific, it's useful to know that it's here for you. The style preview would let you click on that and then pick whatever style and see what the different style citations are going to look like. So we've chosen what our style preference. So like I said, I used APA. Now we're going to start adding our citations. So I have kind of like a dummy document that I started with. You're going to click within your text for where you want to insert your citation. So if you're doing it while you're actively writing, you would pause at the end of your sentence or wherever you were inserting your citation. You're going to click over onto the toolbar to where it says add or edit citation. And then this red Zotero tool will pop up on your Microsoft Word screen. You'll notice on the text, I have a little yellow box with citation on it. Once you click on that Zotero tool, it kind of puts a placeholder with the field code where it's going to go. I just colored it yellow so it'd be easier for you to see it. At this point, it's kind of isn't really anything until I start telling it what I want to put in there. Now within that Zotero toolbar, I want to search for the citation I want to enter. So I can type in the name of my author and then one of my references in Zotero that matches that author will come up. If I have multiple results by the same author, you're going to see more results in that My Library. You would click on the one you want. So it would be highlighted in blue, and then you're going to select it. Once you've selected it, it is going to insert that citation into the toolbar. It gives you kind of the preview. If everything on it looks fine, you're going to hit enter and it will insert it into your text. On where it's inserted on my text, you're going to see it looks kind of slightly darker gray. That's just showing you that it's a field code. When I select away from it, you're not going to see that highlight. And nothing different is going to show if you print it. It's going to print like normal text. Say I need to make changes to that particular citation. So perhaps I use the author's name in my text, so I don't want to include it in my citation. Or I use a specific quotation and I need to say what page in my reference I used. If I click in that Zotero toolbar on that citation, it's going to open up this dialog box that's going to allow me to enter the page number. It's going to allow me to choose to suppress the author if I want to. It also adds the option for that prefix and suffix. So if you are citing maybe multiple authors, Smith's 1977 classic article to something. If you had text where you're combining two different things within your citation, you're going to use that prefix and suffix. You're doing it within the tool rather than on your text of your paper, so that if you make changes later, it's part of the code and it will change it with it. That toolbar, well, the first search I did was by the author. I can also search by keyword. So because these articles within this particular collection were all on emotional intelligence, I put in emotional. It's going to search for everything where that keyword appears. You'll notice on the top, it's going to show me the ones I've already cited within my document. Underneath, it's going to show me the other references that I have not used yet that are in my library. So I can then pick the one I was actually looking for and go from there. So this is handy if I know it's in there, but maybe I forgot one of the author's names or how to spell it. It's going to help me find it. The other way to find things is if that search bar doesn't necessarily work for you, you want to see more information, whether you don't remember the author's name, or maybe you have a lot of works with very similar authors, very similar titles, and you just want to see more of that citation information before you pick them. If you click in that Zotero toolbar on the Z, you can choose the classic view. That's going to give you a screen that looks a lot more like the general Zotero tool. So it's going to pop up this dialog box ahead of Word instead of just the toolbar. From within this, you're going to see all the references that are in the current collection that I was citing from. I could, if I'm not seeing the reference I need within this collection, I could go into one of my other collections or into my library to pull up more of those resources. I can also, in the top right of that dialog box, add more fields. So I could add the years, the publication name, more information about that particular reference, so I can decide if it's the one I'm trying to use. Down at the bottom of the screen are the same tools that were available when we clicked on edit the citation on the toolbar. So you've got the suppress author, the page number, prefix, suffix. Here you'll see there's a button for multiple sources, so that you could click there and add multiple sources. In the Zotero toolbar, after you have your one reference, you just do a second search and pull up that second reference, and you could have multiple sources cited there as well. Once you've selected the correct one, you'll do OK, and again, it inserts it into your text. So pretty easy. You've inserted all those citations into your text. Then we're ready to add our reference list. It's not going to add the title, so you're going to have to type in references, works cited, whatever kind of the bibliography information title that you need for your citation style. So I've typed in references, then all you have to do is click that Add Edit Bibliography button, and it's going to insert, already sorted, all the references that you have cited in this document. It's going to already automatically insert them for APA alphabetically. What's awesome, especially if you clicked that automatically update, is if I go back later when I'm editing and realize, oh, I forgot to add this other article, and I go in and add it, it's going to automatically update it and insert it where it should be, any additional references. So you don't necessarily have to wait till you're fully done with the paper before you do this. It will just keep adding on to it. Now, say you did this and you went, well, there's another resource that I want to have included because it helped me define what I was doing, even if though I didn't specifically cite it. If you click back in that Add Edit Bibliography tool, it's going to pull up this Edit Bibliography dialog box. From here in the center, you'll see the little arrows. I can move additional works onto my reference list, and then I could move them back off again if I didn't want them on there. So you can do that and add additional titles, and then just click OK. And then there's the displaying the preview when you select certain titles. Essentially do that and then click OK, and you've built your reference list. Now, the two things I didn't really talk about when I first showed the toolbar are this refresh and unlink citations. The refresh is what you used if you're doing a longer document and you turned off that automatically update. If you turned off that automatically update, when you're ready for it, your document to be updated, you're just going to click that refresh button. It's just putting you in control of when it updates versus letting the computer do it. The unlink citations is a little bit different. When you do click on that one, it is going to remove all the field codes throughout your entire document. Once you've done that, it cannot be undone. So you want to make sure that you save kind of two versions of your paper so that if you ever need those codes back, you have another version with it saved. It's useful if you are collaborating with someone who's not using the Zotero tools. It may also be good at the very end when you're submitting, say, a dissertation or thesis to your advisors, and you don't want all that excess code stuff in there when they get it. But you're going to want to make sure you've saved another copy so that if you do have to make changes, it has it in there. Hold on, I've got a chat question. What if I have an author with a particular, okay, I will, foreign last name, we'll look at some of those options and see how it works. Hopefully they've got it preset. If not, that's where we can change your author's name in either the metadata of the article, or we can format it within the reference. So someone had a question about using names with a lowercase de and then the last name, making sure that your stuff is consistent. So we'll look at that and I'll see if I have any references with that in it. Usually, however it's cited in the document is how it's going to, in your reference in Zotero, is how it's going to insert it into your document. All right, so now I'm going to kind of a live version. So don't worry about trying to read my text. I just used a fake text generator to kind of make a document. We're going to click into our text, click on our Zotero tool to get our toolbars, and then I'm going to add or edit a citation. So I'm going to go in, start typing the beginning of a author name, and it's going to do my search for me. I'm going to click on it. You'll notice it is kind of highlighted here in a bubble. I could add an additional one, or I can click on that, and that's when I'm going to get that edit bar. But if it's the way I want it, actually, let's see. So, like I said, I could click on a second one, and then I would cite both. And I now have the citation of both those articles. Now, if I go back into the edit and add, and I click on my Zotero tool, I'm going to go to the classic view, and that's where I'm going to see my options. And I don't believe that it is popping up. but I can click on another one of my citations. I could choose to say a page number and suppress the author there. And when it inserts my citation, there we go. So essentially, that's just how you're going to go through to kind of insert the citations. It doesn't automatically put in spaces or punctuation before or after other than the parentheses around your citation. So you're still going to need to do that. Really does make it very simple with this tool. All right, so I have my blank page with my title on it. Then all I'm going to do is click on this Add Edit Bibliography, and it makes me very happy. Like magic, my reference list appears. It's going to have inserted everything we've used within this document, but I can then click on it, go to the Add Edit, and that's where that other toolbar, this the edit options appear. So I could say, well, I had intended to, include this one, or I want to, this was important in how I came up with my ideas. I can click that. It's going to add it to my document. I do OK. It's going to update this. And it added another resource to my list. So it's really pretty easy to just do that. If I, again, could do the refresh or the unlink from there as well. Like I said before, the biggest thing with how your citations are appearing here is going to be how it's pulling them from Zotero. So within Zotero itself, when you import those references, you can edit them in there if it's something doesn't look like right in terms of abbreviations, capitalizations, spellings, those kind of things. It's usually importing it from wherever you pulled it from, which all data that we're using is only as good as kind of the metadata behind it. So if you see a problem, if you go into Zotero and edit your individual items, you should be able to update and fix those. If you have any additional questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, here's my email. You're welcome to email me if you have any questions about using this going forward. I'm also kind of who you talk to if you are a graduate student working on thesis or dissertations. Okay, so let me escape this, go back to my document. So if you wanted to add a reference list, but we're not doing in-text citations, here, when you went to enter it, you would still click Add Edit Bibliography. And if you hadn't done in-text citations, if you hadn't used the in-text citations, if you click the Add Edit Bibliography, you're going to come up with that edit tool here. And you would just select any references you wanted to use, even if you hadn't used any in-text citations. Does this mean Zotero will not automatically put titles in sentence case for the APA 7? Generally, it should automatically pull your citations in the appropriate capitalization structure, that kind of thing. If there's an error with how it pulled it, that's where you're editing your metadata. For the most part, it should pull everything into the sentence case that's appropriate. So it really depends on where it's pulling from. For the most part, that metadata is going to be fine. There just may be the rare case that if it isn't capitalizing something right, that you can go back into the data and fix it. But for the most part, the default generally is going to do what you need to do. It's more, we're showing you some of the deeper background behind the scenes options in case something isn't working right. But the majority of the time, it's the defaults of the style you used, how it's importing things are going to work. He uses references from websites. Is there a special way to enter them in MLA? So yes, all of the formats, whether you're citing a book, an article, a website, a video, podcast. Everything has a set style. If you save that website into Zotero, the Zotero is going to do the hard work of figuring out how you're supposed to enter it for MLA. It's going to already convert it into pulling the data it needs from that website to make that citation. That's part of the fun of using these citation managers, is they do a lot of the hard work for you. It's just a matter of double checking it, because with everything, there's always the possibility of error. So you just want to look at it to make sure it's doing what you want it to do. So yeah, it's a handy tool. It's just a matter of getting used to it and figuring out what you need it to do.
Kristin, I have a question. Could you demonstrate how to change the citation style on references and citations you've already inserted?
Sure. So I've got everything kind of set. Like I said, we used APA. So if I go back to my document preferences and go in, and I just found out, oh no, I'm going to go with IEEE because I think it's one of the ones that is more different. I'm going to say okay, and it's going to think. Then it updates and changes my style. So it's obvious in the references. So instead of the double space with the indent, since I switched to IEEE, they are now numbered and single spaced. If I go back up to my citations, you'll notice that they now tell me which numbered citation I'm going to, rather than the author's name and the year. So it goes throughout my whole document and finds wherever I use things and is changing them to match this style. So if I go back to document preferences, I could go to then, ML, there it goes, MLA. I can switch to MLA. It's going to think for a second, and then it's going to convert them. So again, it's going to change my style so that it matches the rules for that particular style guide. So because I left it on that automatic, it was, once I click on that, it takes a second to think, then it inserts it. If I had done something else, I could click, if I had selected the not to automatically remember, I'd click that refresh and it would cause it to change it at that point. But I could go between that and, you know, keep changing it till I found whatever style works to apply for what I'm doing.
That's so easy. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, it's a good tool, especially if you realize late into the game that you're doing something that has a different requirement. So for any of you who might be like writing articles, your usual discipline may use one way, and then you need to submit it in a different format for a particular journal.
I just thought of another question.
Okay.
Because we are obviously focusing on Microsoft Word, but is the process of adding citations and bibliographies similar in like Google Docs or any of the other things that it integrates into?
It works pretty much the same way. The tools are going to be the same. Where they fall on their toolbar is a little bit different.
Gotcha.
In part, I stuck with Microsoft Word because since this was originally is a GradTrack workshop and our thesis templates are in Word, they're there. For more specifics on how it works with different word processors such as Google Docs, LibreOffice, the Zotero site has a lot of tools on how it works within each of those. But the basics of how you go in and insert things, how you edit them, works pretty much the same way it does here. That where the tool is just might vary a little bit.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. Like I said, you're welcome to email me. Let me pull my email up again. Yep.
Does it work on Linux? I have a student who's been using Linux and having problems.
It does work on Linux. Since I don't use Linux, I don't know a whole lot about when there's problems with it. There are, I know, at least 2 different Linux downloads.
Okay.
So it may be that they don't have the right one, but usually the people using Linux know how it works.
Oh, yeah, usually. Okay.
The best thing I can suggest for them is to go through some of the Zotero help.
Okay.
Just because they do offer a lot of support for some of their different downloads and software.
Yeah.
But honestly, I barely ever used Linux and don't have one available to me to even fully test. So I can, if they need help, they're welcome to contact me and I can try to help them find those resources to answer the problems and maybe troubleshoot it a little bit.
Okay,
but
thank
it's
you.
not a platform I'm super familiar with.
Me either. I know nothing.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. Also, like I said, it works on Macs. It also works on the Microsoft Office Word on a Mac. It's just a slightly different plugin, so it may look a little bit different.
Oh, I have a Word document open on my Mac, and I actually just noticed the Zotero tab at the end. That was the first time I noticed it.
Yeah, it's really handy. And for any of you who also want help with the grammar editing, Grammarly also has, if you download the Word, has a plugin that works within Word for editing as well. So when you go back and look at my toolbar, if you look at the recording, you'll see I have both of those plugins in there because it really adds some additional tools that let you do some different things. And with the Zotero tool, I just feel like it lets you work with it a little bit more than the copying and dragging stuff in the version, which works, but this will let you do a little bit fancier things and works better with larger documents. Thank you all for attending. I'll still be here for a few minutes if anyone else comes up with any additional questions, but it looks like we've slowed down. Like I said, thank you for coming, and we will post this up on the YouTube. And you're welcome to email me if you would like copies of the slide handouts as well.